Greetings to all of you out there and welcome to the video of the first skill of the reading section. Within this video, I am going to talk about the different techniques that you can use to improve your vocabulary and context skill, which is the first question style and the first skill of the reading section. Before starting the slides, it's better to have a review on the outline of this video. First, we are going to talk about the different reading techniques which are needed while you're preparing for the reading section of the TOEFL test. Afterward, we are going to talk about the definition, format, and the first step of the first skill. Then we will have example question. Afterward, we are going through the strategies that are needed for vocabulary and context skill. Then we will have a practice question. And finally, we are going through the tips on how we can remove or eliminate the incorrect options. So let's get started. Reading techniques. Usually we have three reading techniques in the TOEFL, the first one of which is skimming. It's an intentional speed reading. It means that we are reading so fast just to get the gist or the main picture of the passage. We are moving so quickly over the text to understand the main point of a paragraph or a passage. Usually, like the skimming in a passage of a TOEFL is like you're reading the first paragraph of the passage, then you're reading the first lines of each paragraph of the body part, and in the last you're reading the whole conclusion paragraph of the passage. So that's a skimming reading that you have got all the main points within a passage. Next is the scanning. Scanning is an ability or is a process that we are looking for specific information into a piece of text or information. Usually, like we read the question, we know the keywords, and we have the keywords in our mind. So while reading the paragraph, we are looking for those kind of keywords that we have already read from the questions. It makes it so easy for us to locate the answers quickly. Intensive reading. It's a careful reading to understand all the details and the minor points of a sentence or a passage. For example, for a question that the factual information and the negative factual question, they are questions that they require more details and minor points of the paragraph. In those kind of questions, we are going through all the details of the passage or the paragraph. In that case, need to just have this technique as the intensive reading all the words. We are not trying to leave out any words because they are playing big roles in those kind of questions. Okay, now we have came to the first skill of the reading section, vocabulary in context. You will see a short passage with a word selected. Usually it's some sentences from a paragraph within a passage, and one word of it is selected and it is highlighted. You're provided with four options to choose the clues and meaning to that selected word. Usually there are two scenarios that they are problematic for students. Maybe it's a word that you haven't seen before, so it's a problem already, and or maybe it's familiar to you, but the way that it has been used, it's not familiar for you. So within these two scenarios, we are going to face some problem, and we need some technique in order to find that the closest meaning of that selected word. Stay tuned, we are going to talk about that. The format of this skill is like the word selected or the word X in the passage is closest in meaning to the four options are going to be presented to you. And in order to answer these kind of questions, we should try to understand the context and deduce or get the meaning of the selected word just from the context, not from the word itself. Maybe that word has two or three meanings. We know only one word, meaning of that word, but in the text or in this paragraph, the second or the third meaning of that word has been used. So for that part, we cannot just stick on our own or previous knowledge. We should try to get the meaning from the context. If you're not familiar with it, then choose the most likely answer from the options. So after reading the sentences, like it will be so obvious for us, like which kind of word or options is going to fit that context. For more information, we are going to just have an example in here. The researcher spent 3-month intervals in Antarctica for each of the past 4 winters in order to complete his experiments. In this sentence, the word intervals has been selected and highlighted, and we are provided with three options: A. Travels, B. Periods of time, C. Research methods. Usually in the TOEFL, there are four options for each of the reading questions, But in here, because we are using an example, it's okay. So far, by understanding the intervals and having the three options in here, we can just look for the context of the sentence in here, of the text in here. By having the three-mount adjective for this noun, so far we understand that the research methods cannot have an adjective of three mounts. So in here, the option C is not a logical one for using instead of the intervals. We can already eliminate this option because of the adjective is non-applicable for using with this option. It's only leave us with two options, travels and periods of time. So we need one more evidence to remove one of them and go with the correct one. We have in here the verb spend. And so as far we know that the travels they are not something is expendable. So we know that the only thing that is expendable in here is the time. And here it's so obvious that the option B is the closest in meaning to the intervals because the three-mount adjective cannot be used for the research methods and the verb spend cannot be used for the travel. So that only leaves us with the option B. Next, the television program featured an immense whale. Whales are big creatures, sea creatures that they are eating and feeding on fish, spotted in the Atlantic Ocean. Immense in here is as an adjective. Why? Because it is describing the whales. So immense whale. Logically thinking, the program of a television, they're usually featuring something which is not common or normal because they are television programs so far. And that's it. Like it just tells us that it's the whale cannot be something common. Why? Because the television program is featuring it. It's displaying this whale in the screen of the television. It should not be something common because all the whales out there, they are common. It should be tiny or it should be massive. So far we understand that option C is not the correct one in here. We only have B and A to think about. Whales, they're usually big creatures. If they're tiny, they're not whales anymore. So in that case, and the featuring of the television program just emphasized on the size of this whale, we are going with the massive option in here. Why? Because the whales, they're already big, and they should be bigger than the usual size to be featured on a television program. Next, West Side History is a modern replication of the history from Romeo and Juliet. And here the replication has been selected and we are provided with substitution, copy, and comparison. Having the adjective modern here, it is describing the noun replication. So maybe from your previous knowledge, you know that the replication means copy or duplication. But in here, having the adjective modern just indicates that it cannot be the copy. Why? Because the copy is the exact thing of the same object. It cannot be all modern or it cannot be ancient. It is the exact thing. So by having it modified, it just deletes or omit the option B. So we are only left with the option A and the option C. And having the word modern again and the replication combination with it, we know that it cannot be something compared. Why? Because when we are comparing two objects, we are not talking about they are modernized or whether they are ancient or they are modern. We are just comparing them. We cannot say the West Side History is a modern comparison because it is unlogical and also grammatically it's not correct because they are not compatible and they are not they're not being used together. The only option which is left in here is substitution, and substitution means replacement. So the West Side History is a modern substitution or replacement of the story from Romeo and Juliet. And here we are going to talk about the strategies on how we can improve the context skill or the vocabulary in context skill. The first, we should read the entire sentence with the target vocabulary word in it. When we are seeing a highlighted word, we should read all the sentence words, not only the word or two or three words around it. We should read the complete sentence. Why? Because there are sometimes some word from the beginning or from the ending of a sentence related to that highlighted sentence. So we need to read the entire sentence for understanding and making a better comprehension of that context. Determine what part of a speech the word is and try to understand its function in the sentence. Maybe you have figured out why I was saying about the adjective, noun, and also the compatible using form of two words together, because they are playing big roles in here. If you understand the parts of a speech of a word, for example, if it is a pronoun, noun, conjunction, preposition, verb, adjective, adverb, you already one step ahead and you can figure out like which of the options are not in that parts of the speech form. So it will be easier for you to choose the closest one. Determine if you have seen or heard the word before. If yes, does it fit into the content? So it's important, like it's telling us, try to just check the word that you already understand the meaning of it to just fit it into the context and try to see does it match the context or no. For example, for the third example that we had about the replication, one of the options was copy. From our previous knowledge, we understood that the copy is replication and or maybe duplication. So, but it didn't fit the context. In that case, we just remove that option. A complete paragraph from a passage of the TOEFL reading section. It's for practicing. So far, we have already read the strategies and the tips on how we can just find the answer for the vocabulary and context skill. So, one of the strategies that we talked about was go for the question. Do not read the passage yet. So we are going to the question. What is the question first? The word remnants in the passage is closest in meaning to. We are not going to read the options now. We are going to just locate the highlighted words so it's in the second line, and we are going to start reading from the start of this sentence, not from the start of the paragraph, because there may be information that we do not need to understand them. The information that we are looking for are usually in the sentence itself. So the raised beaches are remnants of former coastlines at higher levels relative to the present shorelines and visible. Like the information that we are looking for are only in the raised beaches or remnants of former coastlines. Why? Because within these few words, we have all the information we need in order to answer this question. Just we are going to analyze each part of this sentence. Raised beaches, you know that the beaches, they are locations from oceans or from rivers, and the raised, it means they are elevated. The ground has been elevated into the air, and they are remnants. So the remnants has been used for the raised beaches that they are in the present time. Why? Because in here the to be verbs are has been used. So the remnants are something relevant to the raised beaches that they exist right now. And also, they are remnants of former coastlines. Coastline is a synonym of the beaches in here. Like again, they are some locations. Former in here, based on our previous information, also we have a tip in here, try to connect the word to the one you already know. The word former in here, we already know that it is something related to the past tense, like the the objects that we have, they are coming from the past and they are the former of the origins. So the remnants of former coastlines. What are the remnants? Or even what is the remnant? So far we understand that the raised beaches, they are locations that they exist now, and the former coastlines, they are locations or places that they existed in the past. Right now, they do not exist. Why? Because they're former. But the raised beaches, they are. It means they exist. So far, we have three options to use instead of remnants. We are going through them and evaluate them with which one of them is the correct one. Origins, we are going to start with the third one. Origins. Origins means the roots of something. The raised beaches that they exist right now, they are the origins of the former coastline. It doesn't make sense. Why the beaches or the locations that they exist right now, they be the origins of something that already existed in the past. So it is a misplaced of the origins, or is a misplaced of the root. It cannot make sense in here. So we are going to remove the option C because origins should be in the past, not in the present. The next option is regions. Regions, you know that they are districts or areas, and also they are some kind of geographical locations. Raised beaches is a geographical location. Coastlines is a geographical location. Let's just use it instead of the remnant. Raised beaches are regions of former coastlines. Can it mean that this one location is a location of another location? Of course, it doesn't make sense. Maybe grammatically it's correct, but logically it's not making any sense. The only option that we left in here is remains. The beaches that they exist right now, they are the remains of the beaches that existed in the past. The correct form of the tenses in here just help us to figure out which option is the correct one. The option A is the answer. We know the meaning of the word former, so you can probably guess the answer is related to the meaning of the former, of course, in here. The origins, they are from the past tense, yes, but they are not present. Remnants is something that we can see in here. It's used with the to be verbs. The origins, they are not still here. The regions, a location cannot be a location of another location. It's obvious. The only option is remains. That's it for the practice question. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, we are in the final part of this video and we are going to talk about the tips on how we can remove the incorrect options. Incorrect answers may be one definition of the word, but not the correct one in the context of the passage. We already talked about it, that maybe a word has several meanings, and maybe one definition that you already know is not the correct one. Maybe it doesn't fit the context. You should try all the meanings of that word to be sure about it and try to see whether it fits the context or no. And like usually they are distractors. They are bringing like few other meanings of the word that they are true, but they are not fit into the context. Be an antonym as piece of cake. Like maybe the synonyms and the antonyms for the selected word has been spotted in the options. So it's like usually a distractor. Sometimes they are putting the antonym of the correct options. Be careful about them. Be another word that could fit into the sentence. Like usually, like grammatically, they are correct. It means one word, they fit the context, but they are changing the meaning in here, but does not match the actual meaning of the word in the questions. For example, the word tiny in the one of the examples that we had in the early of this video, the massive tiny common of the veil or the mass immense veil we had previously. The tiny was one of the word that could fit into the word into the sentence. Grammatically it was correct, but if you think about it logically, it wasn't correct. Why? Because the television program was not displaying something which was so tiny. And that's it. Like maybe it fit the sentence, but it does not convey or transfer the meaning of the actual message. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it. Now you're able to crack the first skill of the reading section. Take care and goodbye.